Hey, so I am Charlie, and I want to talk to you today about how a children's book changed my life. So, Harry Potter is my favourite story, and today I want to tell you my story and why the Wizarding World means so much to me. So, I grew up in a very strict Christian household as the eldest of two. I was a people pleasing academic bookworm with a rebellious side, not too rebellious, though I had some serious rules to adhere to, and I had the family image to uphold. And music and books were curated, and they focused on wholesome stories, particularly those which included jolly hockey sticks and lashings of ginger beer, and definitely not anything evil or satanic like books about witches and wizards or magical beings. Unless, of course, you count Narnia, which we didn't because that was a metaphor for Christianity. Now, looking back, that is one of the very many things that doesn't make sense to me now. But anyway, I tried, and I couldn't get into fantastical books. So as I grew, I fell into Agatha Christie and Patricia Cornwell, and they were slightly more gruesome, but based in real life because fantasy books were not for me. And I left home at 17, completely oblivious to the world of Harry Potter, which had been published early that year. And even if it had been on my radar, I would have dismissed it because I was still indoctrinated to believe that reading books about witches and wizards was somehow evil and wrong. I was still doing as I was told, and I was trying to maintain the family name. So fast forward 16 years, and I was early into my motherhood journey, a catalyst, by the way. I watched a film called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and I was blown away by the magic of it all. It captured my imagination, but it also felt like it could be real. All those stories I'd read as a child where you went away to boarding school and through my own school experiences were close enough to relate to these stories of school children and their lives, albeit without the beautiful magic element. I wanted to be at Hogwarts, of course I did. Who didn't want to receive an envelope aged 11 saying, "Welcome to magic school"? And I could get lost in the imagination of it all, especially as by now I was no longer caught up in my parental beliefs. But it was deeper than that. In it, I saw a story about a child who'd been mistreated by his relatives, and that really resonated with me because by now I could see that my family was fractured. There was a lot of toxic behaviour, and I knew it wasn't right, and I didn't feel I could change it. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what the truth really was. I watched the 7 other films and I started reading the books. And the books give a lot more detail than the films, and I must have read the books 2 or 3 times, maybe more actually. Bear in mind, I've only been a parent for 8 years, so perhaps I've read them 3 or 4 times in that time and watched the videos, the DVDs. I'm really showing my age here. The films, perhaps 20 times, maybe more, and I read the books to my children now. And they've always resonated with me, but I've never been able to put my finger on it until I was preparing for this talk. Looking back, I realized that in watching the first film, I felt the same as Harry when he realizes that there's a world beyond the one he's been brought up in. And within that world, he begins to find out the truth and lies of his childhood story. He begins to question his life and starts to believe in himself and reveal his powers. I too questioned my own upbringing, and so it was like when Hagrid says to Harry, "You're a wizard, Harry," and the door to the magical world is opened, and suddenly I didn't have to watch what I said or watch what I did. It was like a whole new world opened, and I started to feel that power within me. I knew I was going to make a change. I was searching for a place to belong where people understood me, where I could be myself. I knew that. And I started to see Harry's story more like my own. It's not an easy journey for him. There's pain to work through. He has to do the work, just like I did. We've both had to battle darker forces and been dragged into situations we didn't want, but we knew we had to face. Luckily, I have never had to face a dragon or being murdered by a cold-blooded wizard. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix is a book that I resonate with most. During my life, there have been times when I have pushed everyone Away, I've tried to do it all myself. I couldn't trust them. The anger bubbled up inside me and I became paranoid about what they were thinking, how they thought of me, whether they were really telling me the truth. And during the last few years, I have questioned if I was turning into the people who hurt me, turning to my darker side. In the book and in the film, Sirius, Harriet's godfather, says to him, "We've both got light and dark inside us. What matters is the part we choose to act on. That's who we really are." And then later, as Harry lies on the ground with Voldemort inside his head, he sees the darkness try to consume him. He believes he is not strong enough to fight it, and this exchange occurs. Voldemort says, "So weak, so vulnerable." Albus Dumbledore is there and he says to Harry, "Harry, it isn't how you are alike, it's how you're not." And as Harry, through half closed eyes, sees his friend enter the atrium to rescue him, he remembers the happy times he spent with them. And so to Voldemort, he says, "You are the weak one, and you'll never know love or friendship, and I feel sorry for you." And with that, Voldemort is forced out of Harry's body. And that gets me every time. Even now, as I say it, I get goosebumps. And it helped me realize that it was my role to break the cycle for the toxic behavior in our family. It helps me to remember that I am stronger than my experiences. Yes, I have dark memories, I have darkness, but they do not define me. That toxicity cannot exist in me alongside the light. I also feel sadness for the members of my family who will never know love, not true, unconditional love, because it's not available, not because it's not available to them, but because their insecurities won't allow it. And so Harry says at the end of that book, even though we have a fight ahead of us, we have something worth fighting for, and that is love. And I realized in my own journey that I was fighting for love too, fighting so my children don't have to, fighting for the love I needed as a child, fighting for the love thrown away and discarded. And it is after this book that Harry understands more about his history, his parents' story, the part Snape plays, and in parallel, Voldemort's story. He recognizes and understands that our past has an impact. And so, Voldemort, he wasn't born into the world as a bad baby. His circumstances had an effect, and he felt abandoned and unloved, and he held a grudge against his father and his grandfather. And yes, he did horrible things, and he should be held responsible for those. But equally, there's an impact that occurs long before any of us are born, and perhaps we don't have any control over it either. And suppose what I'm trying to say is that by watching the films and reading the books, it helped me make sense of my own family history. And unlike Voldemort, I was able to heal and choose better and break the cycle. And as Dumbledore says, it is our choices that show who we truly are, far more than our abilities. And so I feel like Harry and I went through the same journey to find out that there's more to life than the life you know, to discover your own insecurities and darkness, to fight them, to learn that love is the most powerful magic of all, to find out your own story and go on a quest to find the truth and destroy the lies to live a normal life. He could have gone down the path of a Slytherin, the same as Voldemort, but he chose a different path of being a Gryffindor. He struggled as to whether he could really be a Gryffindor or whether he was actually an imposter. So yeah, I guess from that perspective, I understand him. But for me, there's a lot of wisdom in the series. There's a lot of kindness, understanding, empathy. Yes, there's a wonder in the magic of it all, but the values that the book instill knuckle down to an intrinsically human qualities. There's bravery on multiple scales, from facing Boggarts to killing Voldemort. There's loyalty. Snape's actions are the very definition of the word, and the plot focuses closely on the importance of trusting both your own instincts and those of your inner circle. It meets my values of unconditional love, of kindness, of growing into wisdom as we experience life, working hard and being loyal. Yes, I am a proud Hufflepuff. These books are my safe space. When I'm feeling insecure, I go and I read, and that allows me to find something new that often I didn't see before. And I think, we all have this within books, within films that we love. And there are some things that we keep coming back to, and that's okay. It's more than okay. It allows us to experience our emotions in a safe space. And I know that it ends up okay for Harry, and it will end up okay for me too. And as well as resonating with Harry himself, there are so many life lessons that I have taken from the series. There's the relationships he builds. He comes to find support despite not wanting it. And through that, he discovers he's stronger than he thought. It's the empathy he shows his enemy, and he doesn't hold it against him, but fights for what he believes. Harry Potter has taught me a lot about the kind of friend I want to be to the people in my life, and what it truly means to be a good, reliable, trustworthy friend. It's also taught me what I want from my friends in my life, and it's allowed me to let go of people who don't treat me the way I believe I deserve to be treated. Harry treats everybody with kindness. He doesn't judge whether you're a house elf, a werewolf, a muggle born, or a pureblood. There is space in his life for everyone, and I admire that. He doesn't ask people to judge others for their abilities, their looks, their family history. He doesn't exclude people from the gang because he fears them. Harry judges people on their behaviour and how they treat other people. Even for the people like his cousin who treated him badly, he is able to forgive them. And I see the characters representing people within my own life. In moments of difficulty, I think to myself, okay, what would Molly Weasley do? And that fierce love that Molly has for her children. But she also gets really mad at them when they're mucking about and they're not paying attention and not reaching their full potential. Like, I really feel that mother's love in her. And I identify with that. She would be willing to die for her children, particularly when she stands face to face with Bellatrix Lestrange, who's trying to attack Ginny, and she says, "Not my daughter, you bitch." I have 3 daughters, and it is my job to protect them. And they were the catalyst for this whole journey, because as Lily Potter died to save Harry as a baby, it was her love, unconditional love, that protected him. I struggled with why the love I had received growing up had been conditional. Faced with the love for my own children, how is it possible not to love somebody else unconditionally? That was the truth I sought on my journey. And so, although I identify with Harry's journey, the character I identify with, Dumbledore, is a fictional character that I truly wish existed. I wish I could call up for advice when I'm stuck in making a difficult choice or dealing with a challenging situation. Time and time again, he teaches us how to make the right decision, how to love from the very depth of our being, why we should never give up on ourselves or our dreams, and so much more. I see him as my best self. In fact, I have him in my mental boardroom, and he is the coach I want to be. And as I read the books again during lockdown, Dumbledore in the Goblet of Fire reminds us that understanding is the first step of acceptance. And acceptance is important for recovery, for which many, many times I have found to be true. Wise man, Dumbledore, as Hagrid might say. But the real world is nothing like fighting Voldemort. And although many people are dealing with Dementors, sometimes life can feel really heavy. And Harry Potter, for me, is a reminder to stay brave, be courageous, and always stick with what you believe is right, but be open to other people's experiences. Dark times lie ahead of us, and there will be a time when we must choose between what is easy and what is right, says Dumbledore. And so if there's anything that can be learned from this series of novels, it is this: Harry never strays from what he believes is true or right, even if that means he might die. He stands up for himself, his friends, and his family always. And so too, I have found what I believe to be true and right. I stand for myself and the people I love. I have broken the cycle of shame and victimhood within my own family. My experiences, light and dark, shape me and bring so much to my personal and professional life. And I know that this came down to me and the people willing to stand with me, and not Harry Potter himself, him being a fictional character and all. But I am grateful to have discovered it when I did. and it will hold a special place in my heart. And so when people say, after all this time, I will reply, always.